The Good Nurse is a new crime drama currently streaming on Netflix starring Jessica Chastain and Eddie Redmayne about an infamous caregiver named Nurse Cullen who is implicated in the murders of hundreds of patients. Here's my review of Netflix's The Good Nurse. The Good Nurse has fantastic performances. Eddie Redmayne should be considered for a nomination for his performance in this film because his performance in this film is outstanding. It's minimal in that he plays this serial killer that is very subdued and reserved and cunning, and he plays that so well. The issue becomes that he and the other actors in this film are better than the story, are better than the movie. They outshine what's on the page, and I think that's going to be a problem with his getting a nomination for an Oscar because this film is difficult to get through. Of course, Jessica Chastain, last year's best, this year's best leading actress, does a phenomenal job. Like their showdown is as powerful as when I saw them, especially in jail when they meet and in the diner, which is in the trailer where they meet. It reminded me of Robert De Niro and Al Pacino in Heat. That was the type of powerful showdown they had. They give outstanding performances. The issue is this should have been a mini series like The Staircase, where more of the patients that were killed, more of that was on the page and more of that was explored. And more time should have been spent with Jessica Chastain's character and her kids. That arc should have been expounded on. It seems like it was just breezed through and there was more there. Now, this is an adaptation. I get it. But the tone and the direction made it not so good of a viewing experience for me because I can just see more. And this just felt a little incremental and insignificant. I wasn't afraid, and this is not on the performance. I wasn't fearful of Eddie Redmayne playing this nurse. I wasn't fearful of him, and I blame that on the direction. So even if you know this story, say you know nothing about the news story about this nurse killing patients, I think for the experience, for the audience to get the experience of the story, if the audience doesn't know anything about the actual real life horror story, there should be some element of intensity and fear. And I feel like that wasn't conveyed. So we learn about his intoxicating or contaminating IV bags with insulin very early on. That's fine. But we should be afraid now that he has befriended Nurse Amy, played by Jessica Chastain, and her kids. There's one beat in the story where Jessica Chastain, Amy learns that he has been fired because they are already fearful that he is killing patients. He's been fired. She gets home and realizes that he has relieved her nanny or her babysitter. He has relieved her. He has cooked and he is playing with the girls. She's tasted the food before she even knows that he is at her house. I didn't feel fearful, and I blame that on the direction because the characters, Jessica Chastain and Eddie Redmayne, they they put so much fervor and feeling into the characters. Their performances sort of overpowers what's on the page. The dialogue is very bland, but they elevate it in a way that makes you feel invested in the story. So I just don't think that the screenplay is good, and I don't think the direction was good. And then you have the detectives. The detectives just seem so out of step, and that's normal. So I understand there's some authenticity there, because oftentimes the investigation is very slow and winding. I get it. And that's what it felt like. It felt like they were so far behind that it's like, why are you here? Like, I think there would have been more more meat on the bones for the detectives if it were a limited series. I think this would have been better served as a limited series. Even though it's over 2 hours, the runtime, it just felt rushed, and that sort of distanced me from the characters. Then you have Kim Dickens. So she played, well, she wasn't a hospital administrator, but she was on the administrative team, whose job was to get ahead of the investigation and any civil lawsuits, because they could have been implicated, or liable rather, for the deaths of these ICU patients at the hands of Nurse Cullen. I think she did a really good job. You'll remember Kim Dickens from Gone Girl, but she's also in Fear of the Walking Dead and in House of Cards. She's been in a lot. I think she was very compelling as this nurse administrator who wanted to get ahead of these lawsuits. I think she was very good, but she was also underutilized. It's like for this film was, the runtime for this thing is 2 hours long, and in 2 hours it felt like enough wasn't covered. I don't even remember the patients' names, because we weren't, and they do have a couple of beats where you learn that one just recently had a baby, and the other one, she has the love of her life. No matter how she looks, he loves her despite what she's going through, the whole bit. This elder couple. Okay, that is imprinted in my mind, but you feel nothing because we didn't spend enough time with them, and the connection that Nurse Amy had with these patients. I just, for a 2-hour movie, the story felt very rushed. And in that process, I just didn't feel connected to any of the characters. So that is so strange that you can have powerful performances in a bland, disconnected story that's based off true events. That's the problem I have. This is a true story. Allegedly, Nurse Cullen killed at least 400 patients, and kept getting jobs at these hospitals, even though he was suspected of killing these patients. I think we needed time with Nurse Amy and the heart issue. She was almost terminally ill. We needed time with her, and she's a single mother of these 2 girls. We needed time with that story, that arc. We needed time, obviously, with Nurse Cullen, and, get into this mind of this serial killer, this psychopath. We needed time with that. We needed time with the cover up, with the aspect, with the hospital trying to cover up these deaths. We needed time with the patients to honor the people who died at the hands of Nurse Cullen. We needed time with the patients. We needed time with the investigation. We needed time to get into how they were going to solve these murders, even though the hospital was covering up a lot of it and not being cooperative. And we needed the trial. Like at the end of this film, they tell you, okay, he was convicted and he's serving like 9 life sentences or something like that, and he's not eligible to be paroled until 2403. Okay, but okay, what title cards? We needed to get into the trial or something. Like we needed at least 8 episodes. I think this would have been better served as a miniseries. And then Netflix in a week or two is about to come out with the documentary. Like the documentary is probably going to serve this story more than the actual movie. All that aside, Eddie Redmayne is so fantastic in this film. He delivers a performance I think is worthy of a Best Actor nomination for this year's Oscars. But I think he's going to be overlooked because the story doesn't serve how powerful his performance was. At any rate, The Good Nurse is available to stream on Netflix now, and yes, it's definitely worth watching.